this is the longest I've full-time been in Southern California since I was in college, and it's kind of nice. I see why everybody wants to live here. So this, I'm going to read to you from Whereabouts, which is my most recent book. It came out in February of this year, and I never know really what my books are about not even until I put them together. It's almost like after I read it several times. And I've been noticing that the first section, I don't know, it seems like a lot of the poems sort of are trying to explore what I don't know, sort of poking holes in what I thought I knew. I was so arrogant, and so there's a lot of questioning in these poems. The second section is very brief, and it's a lot of ekphrastic poems that sort of get triggered by postcards, mostly art postcards. And then the third section is sort of more reliably autobiographical, I guess I would say it that way. But transient. Celebrate something you know you have to leave. House, book, a sleepy noon road between summer oaks. You have to leave because the locks slid fast. The sky reaches blue into your future, reaches blue into your past, reaching in all directions to celebrate anything, won or lost, without the world's notice. Celebrate something you know. The green tip of jonquil surprises each spring, even as it rewards expectation. A lover's quick intake of breath, something you know you have to leave. It's just another way of paying attention. You figured that out. Another idea someone else thought of first. Celebrate their leaving it for you to discover, like this snow, raining thick on this last day of this March. It will never fall again. Celebrate. Then leave that something. You know you have to. All right. Rule. No clapping until the end, okay? Because you just throw me off my game. And embarrass me, make me blush. My father was a career Marine officer and artillery mostly, and we mostly stayed in Southern California so that he could practice shooting his howitzers. And this poem is set in Twentynine Palms. So it's a Southern California poem. Petrochemical Scar. Where are you now, Karen Harrington? Other than in my memory, where you lean out the front window of your mom's black Cadillac, inhaling the heavy perfume of Texaco Sky Chief. I'm right next to you. In the shade of the station's canopy, Mojave heat and fumes escaping the nozzle bend distance into summer mirage. That narcotic sears our lungs. But you, dark Irish, freckled, you and your family are already charred. Dad passed out on the couch in his skivvies. Mom chain-smoking next to her sweating highball. Older brother spying on my sister. Cousin from the distant galaxy of Los Angeles, inventing games that invariably end in the dark of the Officers Club phone booth, the boys chafing our bewildered nipples. I like to pay attention to, I don't want to say space, that's so big, but what's going on up there. And I'm looking forward to the eclipse of the sun that will happen this month, I think, yes? And I think I sort of get a halfway decent view of it if I'm back in Minnesota by then. But this poem was triggered by the transit of Venus. I forget how many years ago that was, but the astronomy department of our university in my town opened to the public these stations where people could come and choose their sort of method of observing it, without looking right at it directly. So that's what I'm talking about basically here. The transit of Venus. We've been dithering, my internal voices and I, about reality. Must it be experienced firsthand? Or can an indirect impression count, get logged on the life list I've been keeping since birth? That image I saw, reflected in a series of mirrors, of a tiny freckle moving across an immense hydrogen explosion. Was it real enough? Maybe I should have risked more by trusting appropriate filters and faced the phenomenon directly, or pushed it further, fried my aging retinas, there's an experience, and created a new reality. I know, this is all stuff I could have learned in Philosophy 101, Plato, Aristotle, the ethereal, the material, if I hadn't been exploring the cadaver's metaphors, the mumbo-jumbo of chemistry. Hard science was a mystery to me. And what about history? I've taken on faith the biased accounts of battles, inventions, royal ascensions. Must that all be asterisked, like the records of certain athletes? If I'm limited to my own stubbed toes and catastrophe-free existence, then my grief, watching live feed of disasters happening to someone else, must be vicarious. But grief, nonetheless, even if distanced. Out in the galaxy, 7 more transits parade across our local star, as regular as it gets, in our expanding clock face. They happen, though I never see them, with only the universe as witness. Okay, a few years ago, we remodeled our kitchen and gutted it and started all over. And we hired people to do it, and it was an upheaval. But the hardest thing was making choices about, tile and appliances and all these, realizing that if you bought stainless steel appliances like a refrigerator, they wouldn't hold magnets, which is how my family tended to communicate, for many years. But we bought it anyway. So this poem is called Fourth Thursday. Thanks, but no thanks, for stainless steel that won't hold magnets. I need them more and more these days, as my brain feathers into blind alleys littered with late newspapers, anonymous gray birds at the backyard feeder. Sidewalks glaze each morning with rain tempted toward ice. I've already cried over disappearing species, whales, frogs no longer set like gems on wet branches, the weathered elephants who weep for their missing, bats on every continent, cerulean warblers, ocelots, grotesque hammerheads. I can't give thanks for the hunger that eats up wetlands, that vomits its plastic everywhere, that lines the last canyon with houses risking existence for a better view. Who wants to live in those expensive headstones as our necropolis expands? I can hear all our tables groan under the weight of so much excess. I bring a dish to pass, then fill my plate. Leftovers? There's plenty of room in the new fridge. The famous advice for beginning writers is to write about what you know. And And I notice that I write at least one poem every couple of decades about swimming laps, because that's what I like to do. And what I think about when I swim. Breath. It's all about breath, about filling my lungs to capacity, each bronchi dilated, reaching deep into honeycombed caves, each alveoli stretched shiny. I think about oxygen, knowing passwords, and moving, like the spirit it is, into and through membranes, into blood spurting through the swinging doors of my heart, and back out into the body again, faster and faster as I continue to swim. I think of azure sinking to turquoise, of the black line 16 tiles wide that charts my course, the T crowning each lane that tells better swimmers when to flip. I think of the ripple that precedes my breaststroke, how silently it travels. I could be a Navy SEAL, another shadow in a midnight harbor. I think of large semi-aquatic reptiles, gators and crocs, of the lifeguards talking, texting. I think of their sweatpants dragging us both down if they had to rescue me. I think fondly of my goggles, fogging just enough to blur the man in his Speedo warming up on the pool deck. I think of my kick, my methodical feet churning just below the surface. If this were the ocean, a glowing ribbon would trail me at night, disclosing my whereabouts to enemies, it's true, but a beauty worth the risk. Whatever you can think of to keep yourself from thinking, I can't breathe, or I can't swim anymore. Okay, I'm tired. It's about, what's 2006, from 9 years ago now. I was fortunate enough to get a grant from my university and travel to Vietnam to do some research for some nonfiction that I'm writing about my dad. And so I was able to go to the places where he was stationed in Vietnam. And so there's references to that and to the little tiny, almost like domestic sort of shrines that we would find wherever we would go. And then also to my youngest brother, who had died 6 months before that. So they're kind of, it's all mixed up, right? Ghosthouse. All that summer, I moved through the spectral duty stations of my father's war, airstrips, landing zones, bases, repurposed, abandoned, overrun by the advancing green. Small shrines in trees at railroad crossings on the edge of property lines, intended to keep spirits away from domestic space. National cemeteries and family plots. Back home, my youngest brother, 6 months dead, haunted us with his familiar silence about the ghost job he'd held down that last year of his life, the schedule he'd maintained every night, nowhere. I drove by our Begonia Street house, and it was gone, not just remodeled or shrunk from memory's epic proportions, but gone, replaced with a narrow strip of park. I stopped to look west, through our homeless spirits and who we were then, to the surf at Camp Del Mar. I'm just going to read one of my ekphrastic poems. They're really risking a lot because it has Italian in it. When I was in high school, my senior year, we had 3 foreign exchange students, and I became friends with a young woman from Italy, and I taught her the tongue twister, She Sells Seashells by the Seashore, and she taught me an Italian tongue twister. So that tongue twister is in the poem, and I do translate it at the end. But my Italian is not very good. My accent is not very good. And then this is based on a photograph by Louis Hine, pretty iconic photograph of an immigrant family sort of standing on the deck of a ship. So I think that's all I need to know. Immigrants. From the railing, they see the promised country. 3 weeks out of Salerno, they're luckier than some. His family's passage paid by a brother's factory wage. No city suitcase, just the box on his shoulder tied with string. The son already forgetting his childhood. Sopra la panca, la capra campa. Sotto la panca, la capra crepa. What can a man do but follow the one ahead, sign the contract at the end of the dock? Little Teresa will go to school, be the ears and tongue of her mother, who thinks in a language she'll never speak. Under the bench or over, the lamb always dies. Okay. I don't want to say I collect them, but when I get postcards in the mail, I keep them. I think there's a difference. I don't go to flea markets and look, for particular ones, and I don't only collect postcards of, particular places. But so for years I had these, one of those Sterilite, boxes of postcards. And then one Christmas, my husband so kindly bought me a postcard rack, and so I have them in the living room, and they twirl around, and yeah, it was great. Yes, he is. So here it is, postcards. From Paris, one simply must send La Notre Dame et la Seine, buttressed against the clear sky of summer, or, most lovely, the mist we stay-at-homes think impressionist. Moving on, the Alps, an Austrian farm, the Wailing Wall. How familiar the return home to western skylines, ski resorts, California missions, geologic phenomena. A bull elk eyes his harem in a mountain meadow. Bula Bula from Fiji. The Bahamas and Mexico splash Technicolor. Why can't I travel like that? And then there are the art cards. These come from friends pressed for time as thank you notes or birthday wishes. Bruegel the Elder, Ansel Adams, the Tut exhibit, photos of monster trout or jackalope. Years ago, my sisters posed at the edge of a pool filled with happy swimmers, all escaping the desert heat. When we explored the mysteries of Mama's lingerie drawer, we found them again, matching swimsuits, pink, blue, and pixie haircuts. That postcard still sells, and my sisters continue to squint in the Mojave noon. From time to time, that scene comes to us unbidden, a reminder from a country that parallels our own. Okay, I'm gonna deviate from my script, but I'll go fast. I'll read it fast. So this is a poem that began its life as a Sistina. You know that form? Some of you know that form, which I really don't like that much, but every 20 years or so I think, I really should try this. And so I wrote, and I was writing about looking for Sylvia Plath's apartment in London, which seemed like an obsessive sort of thing to do that seemed to fit a Sistina. But I really hated the way it sounded. So I just, I don't think I changed anything, but I just relaxed it so that those repeating words don't repeat in the same way. I mean, I just really messed up the lineation and stuff. So, what do I have to tell you? That's all. Okay. Fitzroy Road. Walking from Camden Town to Little Venice, we faked a tourist interest in Yeats's flat, but were really searching for her behind its blue plaque. London sweltered, and I raged at a knee's betrayal, at hay fever, reacting to ancestral allergens, at a husband who didn't read my mind, become one who preferred a noxious canal boat to walking. He soothed me on Primrose Hill with a lemon ice. Our fervor for the city fed on vista, domes, spires, river running its flat course to the channel. Her broken marriage hovered. I wanted to somehow visit those cold mornings, streets glazed, fresh pages blue in solitude's light, where she kept the absent husband a fresh bruise, a wound that fueled outrage. Over tea, we'd talk of spiky love gone flat, last night's champagne used to steam today's fish. Furies recede, failures pale. Poems don't always come fever-pitched. Some arrive 5 years after an August sky cooled my mood, and we continued the water path. I forgave my husband for being himself. Next day, we rode the Thames to Greenwich. The tunnel to Dog Island took all his courage. Is fame, with its entourage of gossip, what her ambition craved? Yorkshire stone defaced by angry pilgrims. Words burned, image husbanded by the man who left her. She's both a myth colossal and a missing sister. I want to tell her perfection's a mirage, an ethereal blue dream husband and wife build up, tear down. Okay, 2 more. As I said, I'm visiting my mom, staying with my mom, and whenever I come to visit, especially if I come to visit in January, I love to work in her backyard and do all sorts of yard chores for her. And but it's so dry there. I mean, you have to say, okay, I'm going to work on that, section tomorrow. So you have to like soak it, for hours so that you can pull up the weeds. It's so dry. Water. Ocean, ice cap, rainforest. What do we have in common? The ancient molecular attraction, that essential we carry to all compass points. Visiting my mother's cultivated desert on the Pacific, I have to water weeds before I pull them, the ground's so dry. I come home to her oasis in all seasons, support aging climbers, deadhead spent color, transplant crowded roots, prune the incorrigible into submission. It's a miracle, a blessing, the ritual of caretaking, of small daily tasks, blooms into my being nourished, my thirst satisfied, my baptism with hospitable healing saline, what eases us into this world and out. All right. And I don't think I wrote these close together, but they sort of seem to be kind of companion pieces. This one is called Salt. So I got water and I got salt. Salt. She tastes it everywhere. When her children slipped into the world, their skin, shining, spoke of a recent ocean. Certain storms carry traces of waves even this far inland. Her tongue receives a forecast on the wind. Long ago, salt rode, precious cargo, in caravans from tidal flats, stained ochre, vermilion. The bodies dries to fine white grains. They tell her she's dust, but she knows gray veins underground. She licked a nugget brought to the surface, are remnants of tides older than stone. Burned bones will carry her remaining salt back to water, first and last absolver. Thank you very, very much.